Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the one-on-one session from the Shadows Born. It is my great pleasure to be here with you tonight and to say a big hello to Brian, all the way from Hong Kong. Brian, how are you doing?
Very good. Good to be here again.
I'm glad to have you here. And yes, nothing has changed. The spelling of sorcerer is still sorcerer. I have had a very busy week. Yes, so for those of you that don't know, if you do like watching role-playing stuff happening and you like reviews happen that come because of that, head on over to Wizards of the Couch, twitch.tv /Wizards of the Couch, because on Sunday, I forget what day it was actually. Anyway, on Sunday, I ran a game for Casey and his team. And next week, I think I will be doing a review on how that game worked and didn't work and how the players broke it before they even started playing it, which was particularly interesting. So you can go and check that out. Speaking of breaking stuff, Brian, can you give us a bit of a review of what happened last week for those who can't necessarily remember, myself included?
So, getting a little, been working on Raj's accent, and I'm going to try and break that in tonight. So, Raj has been asked by his father to go and to the city of Portios to get a source of Alexandrite gem. And being a very excited teenager and having been given quite a large sum of money from his father, he was eager to spend it. So going to the port, looking for a ship, a good friend of his tried to take his money to begin with, or maybe he was just trying to teach him to be cautious. I'm not sure. But then he saw another very interesting old man with a shiny coin and ended up following this man to a ship um, and hired him. Uh, Unbeknownst to him, the ship did not belong to the man whom he hired, but he, in no time at all, threw together a crew and we snuck out of port, managed to escape our pursuers through some very exciting dragon maneuvers, and then we were off.
That's right. That's right. You were indeed. And that's where our story will pick up tonight. I'm just wondering why. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that is where our story will pick up tonight. Our ship sailing out into the great wide ocean with the crew under Sajan himself, supposedly, leading the way in whichever direction. And so, yes, that's where we are. That's where we are. You find yourself, Rog, on the deck of this ship as she is making headway far, far away from the burning harbour behind you. And there is much activity on the ship. Let me go to a full screen of that ship so you can see it a little bit clearer. There is yourself. I've now updated your icon. I haven't updated anybody else's, so just bear with me. But yes, you are on board this little sloop. She's making quite good speed given the quality of the vessel. And you can see that Key, ignore the token, Key and Sajan are looking dead ahead, making sure the sails are neat and trim. Kavar is moving around, doing whatever it is that sailors do. You yourself are not necessarily a sailor, so you're not entirely sure. And then there is one who stands at the wheel, making sure that the token is the ship is on the correct course for wherever it is that they are heading. What are you doing?
Uh, After narrowly escaping, I'm probably still watching behind us quite often to see if anything is following us that I have to worry about.
Give me a perception check, please, as you make your way to the back of the ship,
Yes.
up the stairs, and onto the back of the ship. So you're not actually in the captain's quarters. You're up on top of deck. I see everyone.
That would be an 8.
Sticking with those excellent rolls from last week, you are looking out the back of the ship. All you can see is a lot of smoke and chaos, it looks like. Now receding quite quickly and moving at the maximum speed of the ship, which is a very impressive 9 knots for a ship of her size, and the wind is not particularly forceful. But yes, you... we're seeing pretty much that from next to you, the large, you think he's a half-orc perhaps, who's at the wheel, turns to you and says, "So what's your duty then?"
I am a passenger.
A what?
I'm along for the ride. I don't have a duty that I know of unless there is something that I could be of assistance to you.
Do you know how to cook?
I could probably make some good curry.
Curry's nice.
Mm.
Are you sure and you're not brought on as cook?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. He looks at you quite intently, and then he decides to err on the side of caution. Right. He then falls silent.
And you, what do you do here?
He looks at the helm's wheel. He looks back at you. I'm the navigator of the ship. I make sure we're going in the right direction. And the like.
And you know what direction we are going?
Oh, yeah, I do that. Very much so, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a very good navigator, would I?
So tell me, where are we headed?
He looks at you. He looks at Captain Sajan, who's down on the deck, moving about, doing whatever it is he's doing. He looks back at you. I suppose it's all right to tell you. Currently, we're en route for our Amosi. You can give me a history check, if you so like.
Yes, I think I will do that. Finally a decent roll, a 17.
Aramosi, if you remember correctly, is at least part of the kingdom of Aetherios, but it is probably easily, as the crow flies, 250 miles further north than Pythios, which was the city that you were hoping to go to. And if it is definitely the Tower of Aramosi, it is definitely very far away from everywhere else. The location makes it very isolated, and yes, the little that you know, Aramosi is sort of a waypoint for ships to stop en route from Pythios all the way north to Ulysses, or even further to the capital of Gypthos, but otherwise it's fairly unremarkable.
So why are we headed there? Is there a particular reason we are going to this destination?
Well, I assume the captain wants us to go there to sell off the ship and change it for another one. I mean, that's a normal procedure, isn't it?
Very interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, good sir.
What time should we be expecting?
Dinner, you mean?
Yeah.
Let me just have a little talk with the captain, and we will get things settled.
Right you are. What's your name, by the way? My name is Kondos.
Kondos, my name is Raj.
Right then. I'm not particularly familiar with Tabaxi greetings, but what is it? It's like bowing or something like that. Well, whatever it is. Nice to meet you, Raj.
Nice to meet you as well, as you are.
Right. Thanks. Where do you head from there? The smell of the sea is getting stronger and stronger, and the sight of the smoking harbour is getting smaller and smaller on the distance.
I need to have a couple words with the captain.
Sure.
Move my way over to him.
He appears to still be busy with the ballista. He and Key are trying to figure out what's best to do with it by the looks of things. Yes, Carver is about doing whatever it is that Carver is doing. Let me get him off of that. There we are. As you approach, Sagen turns. Well, if it isn't our hero and saviour, what brings you here?
Yes, could you tell me what is our plan?
Well, now, see, right, as an investor in our little venture here, it'd be very, very, very fair for you to know where we be headed.
Yes, that would be very good.
Yeah, it's a right idea. Before I tell you, Raj, there's something you should know.
I take it I'm not going to like this.
You might, or you might not. I don't ken your ways. I suspect if you were an adventurous type, you might quite like it. If not, then, well, mayhap you don't like it. But nonetheless, walk with me, lad. Key, you keep looking at that ballista. I want its range improved by at least 30 feet. Aye, that's what we're going to need. He starts leading or walking towards the front of the ship to the bow.
All right, I follow along.
Raj, you may have noticed that we had to perform certain maneuvers in order to effect departure from the harbour in quite a hurry, like.
Yes, I noticed there was some heated pursuit.
I like a man with a sense of humour. Aye. That makes it harder. Tell me, Raj, do you have any skills at all? I mean, you clearly have money. You said you're looking for purchasing of some rocks or something in Pythios?
Well, I am more skilled in the jewelry craft. That is why I have set out on this mission.
Aye, that's right. Duelist, aye. Raj, I'll be frank with you. We're going near Pythios. Well, that is to say, nearer to Pythios than we are perhaps to Vasti, for example, you might say. So, that's the good news. Raj, the bad news is that there's a little place called Aramosi Kala, and they have just a particularly fine...
I have heard it.
Oh, you heard of the place? That's good. That's good. He leans against the bow of the ship on the railing. This trading port, for lack of a better word, it's got quite a large lighthouse in its port. Very useful lighthouse, since it sits on the Madassa Bay, near the refuge of Hikeos. Now, this is all very useful for other ships and all. But you see, Raj, we have discovered that this particular lighthouse uses a particularly fine grade of gemstone as its refracting mirror in order to send light out into the middle of the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean. We've also discovered that this particular gemstone may be worth something in the tune of several thousand gold pieces. Now, you're a businessman, Raj. I'm sure you'd appreciate that with a small amount of risk we might reap a very large reward. Oh, do you get my drift, lad?
So you are attempting to acquire this gemstone,
That'd be true. That'd be very true. And, it behooves me, if I might use a word that I once heard in church, to inquire, lad, whether or not you might be interested in participating in such a venture, or whether you prefer to be put off at the next port on our route and be sent on your merry way.
If this is a profitable business venture and it is something that I have the expertise in, yes, I could be helpful in such a mission.
There is a small risk of death.
That is just a part of life, is it not?
No, that'd be true. That'd be true. 'Tis always part of life, I guess. Now, I wonder if I might press my luck here, Raj. You see, we put to sea in a bit of a rush. And owing to that particular rush, Raj, we may or may not have forgotten to bring along two particular individuals that would be vitally important to the success of this business venture.
You mean like maybe the rightful owners of this ship?
You catch on quick, Raj. I like you, lad. I like you. All right. Yeah. They won't miss it, really. This, it might be an okay ship, but it ain't nothing to write home about. No, we did them a service by getting rid of it for them early. Next 20 or 30 years, and this ship will be sunk to the bottom of the ocean. If not sooner. No, we left behind, unfortunately, the principal individual who was going to shimmy up the rope and get the gemstone out of the lighthouse itself. Very renowned. Do you mind if I say the word, Raj? Do you mind? Does it offend you to your deepest
Please.
soul? Well,
Please, be open and honest.
Good. He was just a very fine cat burglar. There, I said it.
That is not an offensive word. That is, if it were a tabaxi, he would just be using his natural-born skills, so to speak.
I think you're going to fit right in here, Raj. That's very, very worldly of you. Aye, very, very worldly of you. Nonetheless, we may or may not have left him behind, you see, and, well, our only alternative would be to send young Carver, and, quite frankly, between you and me, I think I would rather have someone who's used to handling their family jewels than someone who has barely dropped his, if you get my meaning.
So, what would I get out of this exchange if I were to help you?
Now, Raj, now we get to the true nub of it, don't we? This is the moment that I particularly like. The negotiations, the debates, Please give me a perception check as he's waxing lyrical about his joy of trying to swindle people out of money.
Never good on an important roll. A 4.
Oh yeah. You are perhaps taken in by his grand gestures as he starts to talk. as he's trying to negotiate a fee, he's throwing out things like a proportional share based on all kinds of values and things. And I'm going to need you to make a persuasion check if you want to get more than 10%.
I will do that. And that's a 16.
Well, that's... You've got it up to 20%. You could push it if you really wanted to using a deception check. But there's also the risk that you overstep your mark and he may just get a little bit prickly. You've got 20%.
20% is a fair portion for our first cooperation. There is much that I have to learn, so I think that is a good first time.
No, indeed, lad. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were an old hand at this. I reckon your father sent the smartest one of his litter to negotiate for that rock you're looking for. And my oath as captain of this vessel, rightful owner, and he who is be in charge of the seas. As soon as we've got that rock of the towers, my young friend, we'll take you to Pythios, so you might get your gem.
All right. That sounds like a deal. I look forward to this.
Raj, one last thing before you go.
Yes, please.
Actually, make that two. The first one is very important. Your father, you say, is a gem cutter?
We are jewelry merchants, and gems are our specialty.
And hypothetically speaking, if you were to get, say, a very large, very yellow gem, which may have been used in a lighthouse that was sadly destroyed by waves and storms, and so the gem was found washed up on a beach, do you think that your family might possibly be able to cut up the gemstone into lots of little ones that might be easily flogged on the market?
Yes.
That makes me very happy, Raj. Very happy indeed. Now the other question I put to you, Raj. From way up in the crow's nest... Oh, shit, I forgot to move him. From way up in the crow's nest, there is a shout from Carver, who says, I think I can see something. You see, Raj, this is why you've got to go in and get that stone. The lad couldn't even find his own... As he's about to finish his sentence, the whole boat rocks gently as cross waves seem to be hitting the side of the vessel on the starboard side. Port side. All right, Raj, well, I'll better go and see what this is. I don't suppose you know how to cook. That was the second one we forgot to bring with us. He was busy buying supplies.
I have been known to make some good food at home. I would be willing to try and see what I can make with the ingredients that I may find on the boat.
That warms my heart. I'll make it 25%. Cook always gets 5% regardless. So if you whip us up a meal or something, that'll be perfect. All right, now what is it, Carver? He says as he starts striding off towards Carver. What are you doing, sir?
Okay. I will go and take a look and see what ingredients I have in the kitchen.
All right.
Or pretend to do anyway. I'm very curious about what is approaching, so I'm going to go down below, but try and listen to what's going on between the captain and Carver. Maybe
Okay, dokes. It's not too
help
difficult.
me from the stairs.
Yeah, absolutely fine. The captain has to shout up to Carver anyway, because Carver is in this crow's nest. So if you sort of close the door and just leave it for a little bit, that's okay. And Sergeant, what is it, lad? Speak your mind, quick about it. From in the crow's nest, you hear young Carver. I think it's a wave. There's a very big sigh from the captain. A wave, you say? Well, you keep your eyes out then, lad. You've plenty more to see where those came from. No, Captain, I think it's it's quite big. And then the boat starts to rock even more as more of these waves start to slam against the side of it. From behind and above you, you hear Condos's voice. Captain, I think we're in trouble. There's a large wave cresting off the port side. The captain starts to... You think he's running as he runs up onto the control deck of the ship, desperate to see what's going on. Then it starts to get a little bit mumbly because suddenly the slapping of the waves against the hull gets even stronger as more of these things start to happen, and literally the ship now is getting at least a 20-degree tilt, or listing, I should say, as these waves are getting stronger.
All right. I'm gonna walk back out over to Key and talk to him in Elvish and ask him if he knows what's going on.
Key looks at you. He's holding on. I mean, the ship, yes, maybe 20 degrees was a little bit dramatic when I think about 20 degrees. Probably about 5-10 degrees, actually, as it's rolling around. As you're walking across the deck, you can see there are streams of waves now starting to come towards the ship. And you're not entirely sure exactly what is happening. But that certainly, it doesn't seem to be a natural phenomenon, if anything. You ask Key what's happening in Elvish?
Yes.
The elf looks at you. I am not certain. It is unusual for the waves to be behaving like this. I would wager there is some activity happening further out in the ocean. I do hope that the captain attempts to avoid it, as this ship is not particularly well designed.
What do you mean not well designed?
It is a human sloop to begin with, which means she sits deeper in the water than she should. Her handling is particularly sluggish, and the beams that they have used are clearly inferior wood. No, this, in comparison to one of our own ships, is very, very poorly designed, yes.
What is normally the cause of such waves?
There are many things that might cause waves like this. Breaching of many whales at the same time, but that would not account for this size. Perhaps there is an island which has surfaced, or something on. The merfolk might be doing magic. There are many, many, many things. Either way, hopefully the captain will steer a course directly away from the situation.
I see.
Are you aware of anything that might be causing these excessive waves?
Unfortunately, no. This is my first time at sea. I am not used to these happenings.
It's at that point that Carver shouts, I can see a sail! I can see a sail! And he's pointing to port off of the side of the ship. Everybody seems to sort of crane their necks to see. And are you looking?
Yes, definitely looking.
The waves, as the ship rolls over them, because Kondos has now turned the ship into the waves so that she's now riding over them. As you crest the top of the wave, you can see probably half a mile distant this very large, very well made, definitely a battleship. And it looks like it's one of the human battleships because you can see massive ranks of oars sticking out of it, and then there's very large front prow. It's a quinquereme design. So it's like the trireme, except it's got 4 layers of oars. And it is sitting next to what can only be described as a gigantic hole in the ocean. A simple hole. The water is pouring into this hole, and every now and again the hole sort of fills up and then disappears, and that's causing the waves to wash out in all different directions. The flag of this particular ship, it designates that it's an independent galley controlled by some kind of guild. You can give me a history check if you like. You're not particularly familiar with human guilds.
Definitely have no idea. I only got a 3.
Key standing next to you, he says, that would explain it. It is the Infernal Heroes Guild, an organization of Eutherios for idiots who think they can save the world, to make some coin doing odd jobs. A very unusual organization. Nothing like that exists in my home country, of course. That would explain it. They are probably using magic of some kind. Yes, it is a waste of our time.
Very interesting. Would this be dangerous to us?
If the Heroes Guild is involved, then yes. They are probably trying to summon a kraken or some such nonsense. From behind you, you can hear Captain Sagen. All right, lads, listen up. We're going to avoid that. We've got nothing to do with him. How is the food coming, Raj? Well, I think it's going to be a long journey.
Right on it. Right on it.
The ship starts to make its way away from this. What are you doing, Brian? Sorry?
Yeah, this situation's a bit out of my control, so I will go back to the kitchen for the meantime. See what I have to work with. Keep my part of it.
I would like you to please... you can give me a survival check, because you think you find the kitchen based on the aroma more than anything else.
An 11.
An 11. Yeah, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. Unless you want to interject, for the next 10 days, your ship continues its journey northwards. The routine becomes exceptionally mundane, probably by day 3. Wake up, get food ready for the crew. They don't complain or grumble about it. Kondos is always appreciative. But that is what is most likely to happen unless you want to do something.
I think for the time being, I'm happy with this mission that I've agreed on with the captain. Yeah, the Heroes Guild sounded interesting, but I don't think Raj is in much of a position to have done anything back there.
Yeah, the ship's crew were pretty adamant that they wanted to avoid it, and unless you really want to take control of the ship, it's unlikely that they will turn back.
No, I think we're best off heading. He's obviously wanting to make a profit, so that's going to keep him headed in that direction as long as he's being honest with me, and I believe that he is, obviously.
Yes, there was that moment. Yes, absolutely. And so it is that you sail from Carcoon. I will bring up the map here. That you sail from the little city, well, the trading city of Carcoon, all the way up. You avoid Romesu and sail northwards towards Ipsos, then swing more towards the center of the Arum Sea so that Kasari is nowhere near you. And then Key lets out that he is from Teldarus, which is far, far, far to the west. But you don't go anywhere near there. You avoid Sophos as well. That's definitely not on the cards. And you sail past the entrance to the gulf that would have led you to Pythios. At any point you can interject if you so choose. But that is the journey that it takes thus far.
Would I have any way of knowing how close we have gone by Pythios?
Yeah, absolutely. Kondos is not going to hold back. He's a half-orc that's been at sea since he can remember. Was a slave, escaped, became a member of Sajan's crew about 10 minutes before you did. He needed to get out of Carcoon without attracting too much attention to himself. He thinks he succeeded. Kondos will happily tell you you're part of the crew. He sees no point in not telling you. At best, as you are nearing what is known as the Eye of Gaios, which is a lighthouse, the lighthouse is probably about 10 miles distant. You can just see its winking eye. And from the Eye of Gaios to Pythios is a further 150 miles at least. So your closest ever was about 160 miles. But by the time you get there, you're already starting to head northwards towards Aramosi Kala.
Okay. All right. Now let's keep going there for now. Let's finish this mission and then come back to Pythios on our way back.
The captain will remind you over dinner or lunch that he hasn't forgotten. He will bring you to Pythios just as soon as you've got that wee little gemstone. But yes, that is his plan.
Okay.
The sunrise on the morning that you wake up, putting you just off of the refuge of Hikeus, and possibly a day's sail still to Aramosi Kala. But that morning the sun is particularly bright and quite beautiful. Most of the crew are already on deck sunning themselves and taking in the sights. When, again, young Carver shouts out, I think I see that same ship. At which point Captain Sajan says, it must be the sun, lad. It's virtually impossible. The sea is huge. But indeed, everyone rushes over to the side of the ship, and it could be another large quinquereme sailing the Hero Guild flag, or it could be exactly the same ship. Key looks at you. What do you make of that?
He must have some powerful magic to have traveled so quickly.
Just lots of slaves, I think. Huh? But you are right. It is unusual for them to have made such great distance in a vessel like that. And whilst they might be capable of short bursts of speed, they are using the power of whatever slaves are within that galley. We use the power of the wind, and we sail at night. They should not be moving about in such a vessel at night. It does not bode well. As he says that, behind the ship, this massive wave breaches, and it looks like 1,000 tentacles of 1,000 octopi suddenly burst out and try and grapple onto the back of the ship. But as they do so, magic just flares up from the aft of this quinquereme. Great bolts of blue lightning mixed with these deep maroon blasts of, it looks like eldritch power of some kind, just start slamming into this beast. You can give me an Arcana check if you like.
7.
It is so powerful magic that you don't even know what it is that's being thrown at this beast, but you reckon it's coming from at least 4 or 5 different individuals. And nothing seems to be working against it at all. The blasts slam into the tendrils, and the tendrils just continue to bear down on the back of the ship. The captain looks at it and says, Kondos, I reckon we should probably start making our way towards land right now. What are the rest of you? I mean, yeah, that's definitely what we should do. Hard to start, but let's just yeah, avoid that, whatever the hell that is. This is happening about half a mile away from you. The tentacles wrap around the back of the ship and start ripping it to pieces. That magic continues to flare, but every now and again, the tentacle seems to rip up some body, and you can see lightning playing from that particular figure as it arcs out and lands on the tentacle that's holding it. And occasionally there's this red burst of color as the tentacle squeezes whatever it is to complete oblivion. Or there's a little figure that falls from a great height into the ocean, again firing out different colors of magic towards this beast. The weapons on that particular galley have now all swung around to bear on this beast, which, again, it doesn't seem to care that it's being hit by very heavy ballista bolts, which you can see slamming into it. It just continues to maul at the back of this ship. There is a moment, as your ship is busy pulling hard to starboard to try and basically turn 90 degrees to this entire incident and get away, where you think you see from the front of the ship a large circle of magic. It's green runes that appear in the air, and then at the very center is this very bright green light. That's why you can see it from this distance. And it shimmers into existence for a moment, and then it vanishes completely. And then the tentacles start ripping into the oars of this ship, dragging it down, pulling at it. Carver shouts, "Shouldn't we go and see if they're survivors?" He's shouting to Captain Sajan. "We are the survivors, lad, and we survive by not seeing if there's others. Keep going, Mr. Kondos." Are you doing anything?
No, I agree with him that we need to survive with our own lives. We don't know these people.
There is, all of a sudden, directly in front of you, this brilliant, bright green light. What are you doing?
I don't have any reaction defensive spells at the moment.
Okay.
Just keep see what happens next.
Just stand there going, what's coming up? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
All right. This brilliant green light appears in front of you, and stepping out of it is a very strange, fairly old woman. She has a rounded sort of face. She looks quite haggard. And she's human. She's wearing the various draperies of someone who comes from Utherios. She looks up at you, and she looks at Key, and then she sort of looks at the rest of the crew, and she says, "There is no time." And she just extends her hand out. Pick a number between 1 and 6. Pick a number between 1 and 6.
Pick a number between 1 and 6. 4.
She reaches out, and you see this bolt of blue-green energy start to build in her palm. She's pointing her hand at Key, who's standing there next to the ballista looking directly at her. What are you doing?
Try and push Key out of the way.
Okie dokes. Give me an acrobatics check or a strength check.
Acrobatics. 5.
You go to push Key, but he sort of sees you coming towards him, so he sort of steps sideways. I do not understand, is what he's saying to you. As he says that, that bolt of blue-green energy just slams directly into his chest. And you watch as his face just shrivels in and all the color drains from it. And he drops to his knees. I'm not even going to roll the damage. And he just looks at you aghast for a moment and then topples over. The woman is standing there looking directly at you. And she says, "There is no time. Forgive me." From behind you, you're hearing the captains shouting something in this noise. But then you see behind her, those tentacles are rising out of the sea towards your ship. What are you doing?
Oh boy. Wow. No time. I say to her, no time for what?
For what I must do next. I am sorry for your friend, but his sacrifice is for the greater good.
Can you save us?
She looks at you. Only the gods can do that. She starts to wave her hands and this mystic symbol, this green spiral and green runes start to populate in front of her. From behind her, you hear Sagen shouting, "Shoot her!" But we need to go to initiative, if you please.
All right. 5.
we gotta get you some new dice. That's all I'm saying. Okay,
I was having better luck earlier with D&D Beyond's new dice roller, but it doesn't matter what the dice are. Dice
That's true.
don't do well.
That's true. Okay, so you are going on 5. The old woman finishes casting her spell. She gives you one last look, and then she steps through the green portal, which immediately vanishes. Sagen comes swinging across the deck and lands rather dramatically in front of you. "Why did you let her escape after what she did to poor old Kai? Is he still alive? And what the hell are those things, and why are they coming after us? We're just pirates. We haven't done nothing wrong to them."
I tried to push him out of the way, but...
You're just a jeweler and a cook. I understand. It's fine. Arr. The tentacles slam into the side of the ship on their initiative. And the whole vehicle just rocks. Give me a dexterity save, if you please, if you can.
That was a 17. That was better.
Okay, there we go. You stand firm, but the captain is thrown. He was too busy looking at Carver and worrying about his ship. He's thrown to the side. Poor old... he was looking at Key, sorry. Carver in the cockpit stands firm. And Kondos is thrown off his feet. As he's thrown to the side of the ship. I'm just going to remove Kai here because Key is kind of out of it. The tentacles again start to bash against the side of this ship. You're up. What are you doing?
All right. Although it didn't seem like it made much of a difference, but it's all that I have. I'm going to cast a witch bolt at the tentacles.
Make your attack. I think it's a range attack, is it? Or a spell attack?
It is, and I just got. D&D Beyond just went crazy on me.
That's all right.
All right. There we are. It is a ranged attack.
Make your attack.
Okay. 16 on the attack roll.
16 is definitely a hit. Do your damage. It sails out as these tentacles are getting bigger as they wrap and writhe around.
Oh. And 11 points of damage.
Your blast slams into it, and you are very happy to see that it does just cut a great big chunk of rubbery white flesh with this deep pink coating. It does cut a great big burn through it. But where it cut through, you can see already the hole starting to close and another tentacle starting to grow out of that hole that you've made. That's what you see. You have a movement. Are you going to move, or you?
No. This I have to. As long as I keep concentration on this spell, I can continue to do damage every turn for a minute.
All right. So you continue.
So I'll continue to concentrate on finding a place to do more damage that makes a difference.
All right. As you're doing that, Sajin desperately tries to make his way towards the ballista so he can bring her to bear, when one of these tentacles rises way up into the air and just slams down across the center of the ship. And you are thrown up into the air because the deck just bends under the weight of one of these massive tentacles. The last thing that you're hearing is the captain's voice shouting, "Oh, bugger!" As you land in the water, it splashes around you. Bits of ship are raining down everywhere. Tentacles are writhing. They don't seem specifically aimed at you, more just at everything, because they are now boiling through this water. You get the sense of an eye, a huge eye, but it doesn't seem focused on you. It seems to be looking at the surface somehow. You're in the water. What are you doing?
All right, I need to find something to hold on to keep me afloat. Is there any debris that I can grab onto?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, there's debris. I will give you some debris to hold onto as you are looking at. You don't mind anything, I assume.
No, anything that floats.
Does it float? Yes, I'm on it. Great. So we will give you some debris here to float on, and that is what you are floating on. And behind you, you hear the ship being ripped to pieces. Just absolute chaos. Every now and again, a big tentacle sort of swooshes underneath you, but it doesn't seem to be concerned with individuals, just with the ships themselves. And you look ahead and you can see vaguely a coastline that you might be able to swim towards. But behind you is just the ship slowly being ripped to shreds and pulled apart by whatever this beast might be. And then it starts to rain on a sunny sky. Do you look up?
Yeah. See what the source of the rain is.
A massive tentacle is currently descending directly down on your position. And we'll pick it up next week when we continue. Thank you for playing, Brian. Sorry for breaking your ship. Well, it wasn't even your ship, but it's, there you go. There you go. Thank you, Brian.
Very cool.
Did you have fun at least?
I had a great time. It's wonderful. This character, he has no idea what's going on around him. He's just a teenager, but he's still alive for another week, so that's good.
He is indeed still alive for another week. Well, yes. I'd be pretty mean if it was like, okay, welcome to today's show and you're dead. Roll up a new character. Yeah, no. So, yes, we will continue next week. Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for staying up. An hour doesn't feel long enough at all, I have to say.
It's like just as we get to that critical moment, oh, that's it.
That's it, absolutely. Okay, Brian, I'm going to let you dash as I will now be shifting in a brief moment. I'm going to go and grab a fresh cup of coffee, but I will be switching now. Stay where you are if you're all watching. I will now continue for another half hour or so as I will unpack the campaign that I have planned for Brian, and particularly for this session, so you will understand what's going on and why I did what I did. Brian, I wish you a good night, and if everybody would just be so kind as to give me 3 or 4 minutes to grab a cup of coffee, I will be back with you shortly.
All right. See you all next week.
And Okay, hello. Oh, let me close that down. You don't need to see that. There we go. Right, hello everybody, and thank you for waiting. I really do appreciate it. So let's unpack what's going on, what's happening. I should have closed that. Now, this obviously has been a major rush, in one sense of the word, that we didn't have a session 0. We just went straight into the game. And that's because I think Brian was quite confident and quite comfortable with his character and was quite happy with the session 0. And that does happen if you've got a good bunch of players and a good team who kind of know what they're expecting because you've done enough of the question and answer stuff beforehand. Then your session 0 just kind of rolls through. Now I've got another group of players that I play with on Fridays where they started a session 0. They wanted a second session 0 because they still weren't comfortable with the first session 0. And then they went to second session 0. They finished that one. They said, okay, now we're comfortable. They were on a mission, but they were quite happy to just wrap it up so they can start afresh next time on session 1, basically. Okay, so I didn't actually plan this far ahead, so please forgive me if I bring up the wrong screens. If I bring up this screen, then you can see me at least, and you can see your chat behind me. I mean, that is what it is. But it does allow me to do other things on my other screens, which is good. So I have filled in my forms that I will be using for this. Let me just go through to it. So I filled in the form so that you can see that I'm not completely and utterly nuts. And so this definitely contains spoilers. If you don't want to know what the campaign is that I am planning with Brian, stop watching now. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when the adventure continues. But if you want to know what I'm planning and why I ran this particular session the way that I did, stick around. So you've got a moment to leave. Now, if you do have questions, please write the word question in caps, big and bold, so that I can see it popping up behind me and then I can absolutely answer it. So there we are. Okay, so while people are deciding whether they want to stay or not, I see Captain Priceless saying, why is Avernus theme still playing in the loading screen after all this time? Well, we had the music composed for Avernus, as we had for Ghost of Saltmarsh, and we have more music on the way. We do. Our composer, Darren Curtis, who writes beautiful music and has written most of the music for our channel, it was his birthday recently, so he hasn't been he's been focusing on that. So he is writing new music for us, which we will be using. So just bear with us. Good music takes time to write, and I meddle quite a lot with the writing of that music, so it takes even longer. Okay, so there we go. That's the answer to that one. Inky Design says you can have multiple session 0s. Absolutely. There's no rule saying that you can't. So the idea of the session 0 is that people get happy and comfortable with their characters. Now, tomorrow I am on the Mercs of Mischief stream, which is at a very odd time for those of you watching now, unless you happen to be in Australia, where it's at 9 a.m. GMT or 8 a.m. GMT, I think. Now there we also had 2 sessions, and I think that was beneficial as well. Although the second session was actually streamed as a as a matter of course. So it wasn't even planned to be streamed. So the first official stream is tomorrow morning. So yes, you can certainly have multiple session 0s. Okie dokes. So let's see. Draco Vale says he needs a reliable companion indeed. Well, yes, and this is what I am seeing. Now, let me start by saying that I think that Brian is a great player and I think he's going to do very well, and he's playing a teenager, I think, rather superbly. In order for him, though, to get NPC companions, he will need to engage with the crew a little bit more. And I think that if I had one suggestion for Brian, it would be to talk to the NPCs more. He tends to be a little bit more reactionary, which is absolutely fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is just when he's given opportunities, he needs to capitalize on those opportunities. And I think that it's also a case of, I usually come at people quite quickly if they don't act quickly. I think that's important. If they don't react, I will give them something to react to. That's just how I work. So once he starts to do that, then he will start to find people who will be willing to work with him. So I had thought perhaps he and Carver could form a bond of some kind, or that he and Condor started to develop that, which made me very, very excited. But again, I don't think it was pursued very far, but there wasn't a hell of a lot of time to do that. So that is where we start. I'm happy, though, with what he has done so far. It has been a whirlwind. So I'm going to share with you now my plan thus far. There it is there. I have filled in the blocks. If you don't know about these, by the way, if you don't know, let me show you, because they are available from our website. I'm just remembering how to spell the name of our website. So they are available from our website. All of the forms are available. You can go and get them here. Here is the Great GM Bag of Holding, it's called. And when you head on over into that, so when you take a look, you will see there is a whole bunch of stuff. Planning a campaign or adventure, maps, and NPCs. Now, if you go into planning a campaign or adventure, you will see that all of the forms are there, and I've made them form fillable. So you can download those absolutely free. I mean, there's no cost for it. So I have filled in this block this afternoon, as a matter of fact, because session 0 is also about you as the GM seeing what your players are all about and what they like and what they don't like and that sort of thing. So yeah, I had the idea in my head as to what I wanted to do. I wanted to see what he was doing, and then I could flesh it out. So it's very easy. So this translates into this, which is all 15 adventures, which would form the main campaign, which I have also identified here, and I will take you through those if you so want me to. And then here is the new adventure template that I have been using. I obviously have the older one, which is more complete, but for myself running these games, this is enough for me. So this is what we're going to be focusing on tonight. We're not going to go for too long. But yes, this is what we're going to focus on tonight. And as some people are saying, yes, he befriended the elf, which I killed. Well, yes, obviously I killed the elf, and there's a reason for it. So this is why I'm saying I'm not too worried at the moment about him not befriending NPCs. Those NPCs were literally just there as some potential seeds. If he ever meets Captain Sagen again, he will have a wonderful recollection of their ship being destroyed by these giant tentacles. So there is that. That's brilliant. If I ever need a get-out-of-jail-free card, I could give him Sagen, I could give him Carver, or I could give him Kondos, and that would be absolutely fine. But I don't need to worry about that. So that's done. Grizzle says, now, I gave him a 10-day period where he could have talked to the crew. What did you have planned if he did? If he did, he would have chatted to the crew, and they would have made some small talk. They would have chatted about their hopes and dreams. I would have tried to get him to invest a little bit more in the NPCs in terms of having some knowledge on them. It's not wasted knowledge, even though I intended for the NPCs to die. We don't know if they died or not. It would have entrenched them a little bit better in his character's memory, but otherwise it was okay. So it's always important to bear that in mind. Now, that was a 10-day journey, and you know there is sometimes a risk, and it's also good to see what he said. I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can actually see this a little bit clearer. But it's always important to remember that when there is a journey happening, there are a couple things that you can do on the journey. I only have an hour in which to run this game every week. So journeys for me are either going to have planned encounters, or they're going to be, you travel for 10 days, you travel for 3 days, you travel for 15 days. I might throw a very small description in here or there, but I literally don't have the time. At your table, you shouldn't be pausing too long either. You should try and get going as fast as you can, because the important thing to remember is that if the travel is literally just a montage, don't Peter Jackson it. just do it. Just get on there and get moving. But you have to give your players the opportunity to do stuff. Some players will take that as a sign that they should try and come up with stuff to do. That's good, and that's what they should do. They should engage in small talk with one another. So if he had had other players with him during that 10-day time period, they might have tried to take over the ship. They might have tried to convince the captain to go somewhere else. I mean, there's a whole bunch of opportunities and things that would have happened very differently if this had been more than a single-player game. If it was more than a single-player game, by the way, this sloop would have a full crew complement of, I think it would have 10 people. Because my intention is not for them to steal the ship. My intention is for them to get shipwrecked and to land up on the beach that I need him to land up on. If he had tried to mutiny, if he had tried to kill them all, he could have stealthed through the ship, killing them all. Certainly a possibility during that 10 days, which is absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. He would have still seen the Kraken, and the Kraken would have still sunk his ship. It doesn't matter. Either way, that would have happened. So, but with multiple players, it's a very different story. Okay, so if we look at what I had planned, step 1, arrive at plot. Get onto the boat with pirates. We did that last session. He got onto the boat with pirates. There was very little, there was no combat. This is what S and C stands for. S is for social, C is for combat. So my pacing is very straightforward in this. It's SC, SC, SC. It might end up being SS from time to time, but mostly it's SC. So I just needed to get onto the boat with the pirates. That's all I needed him to do. So he got onto the boat with pirates. How I got him there, I don't plan any of that stuff, by the way. If you are a young and new GM, and by young GM I mean as in the number of GM sessions you have run, not your actual physical age, then I would suggest you go with a more comprehensive plan rather than what I've been doing. I don't need to worry about that because I have my full plan and I have my full outline, so I know where I need to get them to. So session 1, get them onto the boat. Session 2, get them onto the boat and escape the harbor. If I had wanted combat, there could have been a combat with other ships. But I don't have the time. I really don't have the time. And this, to be perfectly honest with you, remember this was a session 0, so I had to incorporate it into the plan. But get them onto the boat, have an escape from the harbor. Then today's session was talk to pirates and form bond. There wasn't a huge amount of time, and he didn't seem particularly interested in talking more to the pirates. As I sort of threw out some hooks and things, I noticed he wasn't picking them up, so I didn't push them any further, which is absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. So talk to pirates and form bond. We did that. Ship attacked by giant sea beast. How they got to seeing that giant sea beast was immaterial. It really didn't matter. I really didn't care. It was however it was going to be expressed. Now, I had the tentacles pre-planned on the Dungeon Fog map because I knew it was going to be tentacles. In this particular case, because that's the token that I had loaded up or that was preloaded in Dungeon Fog, I didn't have another token. I will have for more encounters that actually make sense to have something more there. Now, ship attacked by giant sea beast. If you then we discover that it's not the actual plot. The plot was never to do the pirate theft whatsoever. That was to quite literally, it's because that's what life is like. People have plans, and you make your NPCs feel real by giving them plans and hopes and dreams. And there was tension in terms of what is he actually doing on the ship, and someone was saying they're going to throw him overboard. They were going to throw him overboard because all I needed to do was to get journey to plot. I needed, when he discovers that it's not plot, washed up on shore. That's all I needed to do. So if they sank the ship, or if he commandeered the ship and it was sunk by the monsters, or if he was thrown off of the ship, he would have washed up on shore. Now, I know this sounds like railroading. It is, because this is the first adventure. I need to get the characters to start their journey somehow, and this is how I'm choosing to do it. So all of this session, all of last session really was just a let's get going, and we're not starting in a tavern. We're starting with you washing up on the shore. That's really where the main story is. So that discover not plot, that is the key point. that's where the actual adventure is now starting. The real adventure is now starting. So yeah, it by not having any specific plan in terms of how it was going to happen, it allowed me to be flexible and to see what he wanted to do. Because again, it's a solo game, so I don't have the advantage that I would have with multiple players, insofar as being able to listen to what those players are saying whilst the game is in downtime or before the show, or to Brian and I communicate via email, and so when he has questions, he sends me an email. Normally, I would be sitting in RPG Table Finder or in Discord or whatever social app you use, looking at what my players are talking about to try and mine them for inspiration and for clues. Here, that isn't happening unless I directly ask Brian, hey, what is it that you want to have happen, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the biggest things when you're running a solo game, is that as the GM, the feedback that you're getting is the players' reactions to things, but they're not feeding to you. They're not turning to their friend going, oh, I bet you it's a kraken. And then you can go, oh, well, sure, it's a kraken. Why not? I mean, it doesn't hurt me and it makes them feel good. So anyway, so they're attacked by the giant sea beast. And now next episode, you're going to see he's going to get washed up onto shore and he's going to get rescued by the Cult of Life because he has washed up near the refuge of Hecaius. Okay. So let's see, some questions coming in. Yami Bobo, welcome. If you didn't watch the hour before, yes, it might be a little bit confusing. It is a solo one-on-one game. Thank you for letting them know there, Inky. Grizzle says, did he lose all the money in that shipwreck? I won't take all of his money away from him. He lied. So he paid the captain, I think, 200 gold pieces up front. So I think he had 500 in total. So that would leave him with 300, which he may have in a coin purse with him. But again, because this is a one-on-one, it's a little bit more cinematic than you would normally have. And I don't need him to have that money, and I don't need him not to have that money. So if he has the money, then that's fine. He washes up on the beach. This priest is not necessarily going to be... he's not a thief. He's a priest of life. So I don't have gods in my world. I have spheres. There are 8 spheres that one tries to bring into alignment, and to make one whole, one has to have all of the 8 spheres. So you get these different cults, one for each of the spheres. The Cult of Life is about experiencing life and everything that life has to offer. So he's going to meet this priest. This priest is going to find him and say, oh, what's been going on? The priest may become, I'm hoping, a mentor. That is my long-term plan, is that the mentor is going to show him how Utherios works. And what that is going to do is we're going to go into that session. We've got two social things happening. So although it says combat, it's a verbal battle to stay in the cult. So he will wash up incredibly wounded and injured. Think of it cinematically. He is washed up onto the shore. He's broken. He sees this hooded figure in the sunlight who drags him up onto shore. He passes out. He wakes up again. He's in this cloistered cell-like environment, and he's hearing people saying, well, we could sell him into slavery and we would make a fortune. Or we could maybe use him in the fights because that would be worthwhile as well. So when I was planning this out, I needed there to be tension. I needed the wake up to be, okay, you've escaped the giant, terrifying kraken. Now you're in a worse place because it's an escalation of tension and then a drop, and then an escalation of tension and then a drop. So he will overhear this and he will be able to interject. So hopefully he will be able to talk his way out or to have some kind of say in the matter. When I was creating the Cult of Life, part of the description that I have this whole thing planned out on World Anvil. And actually, this was part of the live stream that I did last year on planning this whole thing out. Let me bring this down here for you to see. Was the cults and things. Let me just go there. So the cults, we have the different cults now. Oh, it's not showing them all. I was moving things around and I think I broke them. So the Cult of Life, I will just go to it here. The Cult of Life dedicate themselves to the journey and experience of living, obsessed with experiencing and embracing everything the cult is, often worshipped by adventurers seeking to find amazing experiences or by those trying to make the most of their existence. The Life Cult frequently works with the Blood Cult, although there are times when the Life Cult finds the Blood Cult at odds, the destruction of one's enemies, for example. So, drawing on that, I went, okay, how can I do how can I make the life cult contentious? How can I solve the problem of needing to have a combat, a verbal battle? And I've established already long ago that slavery is quite fine in Nutherios and is not looked down upon and frowned upon. And I did see someone in chat asking, what alignment is the Heroes Guild because of having slaves? So this is where, when we talk about alignment, we then go, well, in my world, I don't use alignment. I don't have it as a thing because it is completely culturally biased. It is based on culture. And because I don't have gods, I have spheres. There is no religious doctrine, or, to put it bluntly, there's no grand design. So in other words, where there is an argument made for having alignment because the gods exist and can say, this is evil, this is good, and the culture can still choose to do the opposite, here, the universe is just a giant collection of spheres, of life and death, of nature and chaos and all that kind of stuff. So they don't care about your alignment. So I don't have alignment. So that allows the Utherians, who have slaves, to be good and still have slaves. They'll just treat their slaves better than those who abuse their slaves, for example. And so, yeah, that's where I take it. And when you look at the whole slavery debate, I don't think slavery is right on a personal level. From a game perspective, though, these cultures did not have a problem with it. And a lot of people would sell their family members into slavery to make money. So it was seen as a viable career choice, as a matter of fact, in some cultures. And there were rules. You couldn't, if you wanted to abuse a slave sexually, you bought sex slaves. If you wanted a housemaid, you bought a housemaid slave. So there was all sorts of rules. Anyway, so I decided to put in that these priests of life would host battles for young heroes to come and learn how to fight. I specifically put this in because one of the techniques that I use for one-on-one games is oftentimes players are not used to playing on their own. They're used to playing with a party. So as a result, by giving now the next few adventures potentially over to young Raj learning how to fight an orc or an owlbear or whatever in a safe environment, because the priests of life are against death. So they will allow him to fight until he has either been defeated or has defeated the creature, and then they will heal it, and then they will give him the opportunity to fight again and learn from his mistakes. This is partly training Raj on how to use his powers, but it's also training Brian on how to fight on his own. And again, it gives me the opportunity of inserting an NPC that he might be able to work with and form a bond with, because they both were in the Temple of Life and so on. So that was the idea, becoming trained in the ways of the cult, in cultish ways. To be emphatic here, to be absolutely emphatic, if he chooses to leave the temple on the first night that he arrives, that's absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine, because the main plot, the main actual plot, is the theft of this holy relic from the temple. So if he leaves that night and disappears, he will be tracked down by the temple because they think he stole this object. So his goal, he doesn't know this yet, is to find the thief and solve the riddle of how or who the thief is. And when we get to that part, if I look at how we've been doing so far, it's still 2 weeks away in terms of gaming, if not more. There will be a little riddle, there'll be some clues, and he'll figure out who the thief was. And that is the formation of our very first actual adventure, which is outlined here. I'm just going to see how big I can zoom in. Washed ashore and saved by a life cult priest, someone has stolen from the temple the sacred stone of life. It's a mystery that points to Raj as the thief. So this is the very first plot adventure, and he won't know it, but this is the beginning of the entire mega plot, because the next 3 adventures are all on the different cults involving Raj in their own problem. Someone's attacked the priests of the death cult. The time cult has abducted Raj because they believe he's fulfilling an ancient prophecy. And then the nature cult begs for help. Their great stag has been eaten by bizarre wolves. So the first 4, I can't unfortunately drag and highlight, but the first 4 adventures, the getting stuff part of the campaign, is Brian working out, hang on a moment, there are 8 cults, 4 of them have had stuff stolen from them at pretty much the same same time. There is something bigger going on here. And that's then when we start getting into the heart of the campaign, which is when he then starts being attacked by a gigantic beast, a logic vortex. I have no idea what that is, by the way, folks. It just sounded cool and is going to be used as adventure number 1 in the building stuff phase of the campaign once we get there. Something else that is absolutely critical to point out at this moment in time is this is not 4 adventures and then we move straight into building stuff. This is 4 plot adventures. There are still interspersed in this quite easily 4 Raj-specific adventures. I have a suspicion that whatever happens once he's finished with the Temple of Life and they say, well, you've learned all you can learn from us, go away, he's going to go to Pythios. So that's why I made him wash up not too far from it, but that's why. And he's going to go to Pythios and he's going to try and buy that Alexandrite stone. Of course, there's going to be an adventure based on that. Maybe he's going to meet some friends. There'll be an adventure there as well. So the whole idea is that there will be plot adventure and then maybe 2, maybe 3 even, depending on how the pacing is going, of him going on his own adventures, because it's his story. I'm just here to trigger stuff and cause events to happen. Once we've explored the stone of Alexandra, of the Alexandrite stone, and maybe he sails back to his family home in Cocoon or whatever the place is called. I can't remember its name offhand now. Maybe he sails back there. I have to figure out what are the ramifications. Is he going to try and clear his name? Is he going to try and find the remains of Captain Sajan so he can prove he was taken prisoner aboard the ship? I mean, we could explore all of that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that he can then do before anything else happens. Because I know point number 2, the second plot, the death cult reaches out to Raj. Why does the death cult reach out to Raj? We heard what you did with the priests of the life cult. You sensitively and delicately handled a situation which we now find ourselves in, and we need your assistance. So we can do that quite easily. It's not a problem whatsoever. I can bring this in whenever I feel that it's time for the main campaign plot to progress. He can do a whole bunch of stuff. And if we're having fun whilst he's doing all that other stuff, this will just be on hold. I have no problems whatsoever. That's fine. So we now know this is where we are. This is where we're kind of going, and this is what we need to do. If I look at this breakdown, which I have done, and there are, I mean, I have filled it into the best of my capabilities. I've got my big bad, and he definitely wants something. What does he want? Ultimate power of the universe. Oh yeah, I want ultimate power of the universe. The problem is that he needs to get ultimate power before he actually destroys the universe. So there's a little bit of a crux. That's going to happen. And why is it difficult for him? It just takes a long time. It just takes a long time. Approximately, it will take a year for his plan to come to fruition. It's just how it's going to do. It's just how long it's going to take. And he's using this ancient Uthakin prophecy. This is where I needed help from you guys. You'll notice that there is a blank block all the way down here. So the Uthakin prophecy, I will show this to you. The Uthercan prophecy is an ancient rite known as the Uthercan prophecy. It was written by a madman, whom we later on discover his name was Kovakos the Mad. Kovakos the Mad wrote this ancient prophecy on the skin of a phoenix. We'll get to that in a little bit. The problem is, because it's written on the skin of the phoenix, every time you read a section of it, it burns. And it burns for an hour, and then it turns into dust, and then it's got to reconstitute, and then turn back into the prophecy. So you can only read little pieces of it at a time, because that's part of the difficulty that our big bad is having. He has the prophecy. He just can't read it very quickly. Nonetheless, Kovakos the Mad wrote this prophecy 1,400 years ago, and what it details, effectively, is a bunch of rites and rituals. It's in multiple languages, and in this prophecy, I haven't outlined it specifically, but in the prophecy, it talks about how to bring all of the 8 spheres of the universe together into one singular sphere. Whomever controls that singular sphere controls the universe, naturally. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. There is a challenge. The prophecy also talks about the fact that the spheres are diametrically opposed, and so they have to be brought together in certain combinations. If they brought together in the wrong combination, there is a mismatch, if you like, and a random spike happens where the spheres try and push together and then burst apart. Now, the spheres are really just a magical representation of the entire universe. So don't think of them as little spheres, but the items that this madman is busy stealing are imbued with the essence of the spheres, and so we can use them as a symbolic representation of him bringing the spheres together using magic. Anyway, Raj is mentioned in the prophecy, not specifically, not by name. Prophecies are never written like that, but it will say something along the lines of a jeweled thief will be the downfall of the one if he can achieve ascension before the one completes the 8. Something cryptic like that. I mean, it's really, really, really useful how prophecies work. We will need Raj to find a copy of this prophecy, so there is a copy of the prophecy, and it was the last phoenix, by the way, was slaughtered to make this copy, because the copy had to be absolutely exact, and it exists in the town of Defini. I haven't worked out how Raj is going to find that out, but it is an option for me at some point when I'm going down here. I think I actually indicated... Oh, yes. Is it the Voiders offers insight? Okay, yes. The Voider cult offers insight into what is happening before being destroyed by a second cult beast. That's what I'm calling them. It's an elemental. You can see I wasn't being particularly creative there. But it is. They will reveal there is another prophecy copy. The one that we thought existed is not there. It's been stolen. But there's another one in Defini. Just get there. And now off they go on a journey. If he gets the prophecy, that's great. If he doesn't get the prophecy, it's not going to break anything. It's not part of the master plan. He doesn't need to know it. He doesn't need to understand how it works. It's just something that's happening. He will be able to work out how this whole thing is actually functioning. As the various spheres are brought together successfully, certain things start to happen. So as the blood and logic spheres are combined, the world starts to go in chaos, and magic only works if the caster is emotionally charged. So he will try and cast magic. I will ask him his emotional state. If he doesn't say, I'm angry, or I'm happy, or I'm excited, if he says, I'm cool and calm, your magic fails. He needs to be passionate and invigorated and doing crazy, wonderful things in order for it to work. I then couldn't help myself because the blood cult is all about engaging in carnal desires and impassions and that sort of thing. So quite literally, if you're emotionally charged when you're casting magic, that means when you are emotionally charged, sex is literally explosive. There won't be any graphic descriptions of it other than blood covering the walls during happy time. So that's all that's going to happen. Now, it was just my brain going, well, that's what would happen in this way, so what's the alternative? Anyway, the death and life spheres get united, and nothing can stay dead, and nothing can everything that's born is dead as well. That's particularly horrific. but yes, I think it's going to definitely work in terms of driving the idea that, well, hey, just a second, if these spheres are all being united, what happens when they are then all combined together? And so that then will create our time pressure. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Inky Design, I think, was reading the giant theme that I had written here. But yes, blind ambition will be the end of us all. That is the theme. So what's very interesting is that Raj, at the moment, his blind ambition has got him on board a bunch of pirate ships, burning down harbors of his hometown, happily going to go and steal a gem from a lighthouse that he has no connection with whatsoever. His blind ambition is leading him on a dark path, which I think is quite fun. On the other hand, this sits very well. So yeah, it's all about exploring that now, and then turning it on its head. So the only part that I just want to discuss very quickly is, does anyone, and I think someone pointed it out actually in chat. I really do think that someone pointed out in chat. Why do you think I showed him the ship with the heroes on it specifically? I could have just had that hole in the ocean. And there's another question. Why the hole in the ocean? What do you think? What do you think? I'm going to grab a sip of coffee quickly. Because I could have just had it as a big wave. I could have just had it as a Kraken attack. But I specifically wanted it to be a rather unusual situation. So why the hole in the ocean? No ideas, says Captain Priceless. Sure, fair enough, fair enough. Absolutely. At this point in time, you don't probably have enough information to really guess on what it's for. So the notion of so Inky Design, I see that it takes a bit of time for chat to come through. So Inky Design says something was joined and caused it. It was to sink him and let it be open what happened to the NPCs. Void created at the bottom of the ocean, says Lameo 93. The spheres were in alignment. Yep, absolute a plot hole, but dear, oh dear, oh dear. See, just when I have hope that you're getting it, then... No, absolutely. So, yes, it doesn't matter what it was at the moment in time. My intention was to show Brian, because that's ultimately who needs to see this, that there is some unnatural thing violating the laws of the elements. And so the Void cult or the Elemental cult, any one of the cults, could have been causing this thing to happen. In effect, what was happening was that our big bad evil was trying to get to a particular artifact that's linked to the element of water, and it was at the bottom. And so they created this gigantic hole using, as a matter of fact, Wall of Force. To be perfectly honest with you, that's how it was being made, and the wall kept breaking and collapsing under pressure and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So it was to show that there are these world-changing events happening, and that he is going to start to see these things happening more often and hopefully start to put together the pieces. We need to give as many clues as we can as to our plot, remember? As many clues as we can. At least 5 towards this thing. The reason why I included the Heroes Guild was, and this was something that Brian actually said in the brief interval between him leaving and me starting to do this part of the stream, was he was saying, oh, the Heroes Guild sounds kind of interesting. Now, the Heroes Guild was quite literally something that we created in World Anvil during the campaign creation as a way to legitimize to legitimize adventurers within the Kingdom of the Therios. They have a ranking structure, and you can earn points as you go out and do little missions for villages, and you kill wolves and help with carts and all that kind of stuff. You can sort of rise in rank. But anyone can hire them. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to give Brian a sense that there are these heroes for hire. They have big ships. There are heroes for hire, and this weird stuff happens. This really weird stuff is going on. And it's causing the displeasure of beasts nature, of the spheres are out of alignment. This is a concept he's going to learn, hopefully, in the Temple of Life. So the mercenaries are not necessarily evil, they're not necessarily good either. The logic in my head was the little old lady, who we'll come to in a little bit. The little old lady went to the Heroes Guild and said, "I need to hire a vessel to take me to the middle of the ocean. I am seeking a long-lost family heirloom. I'll pay you 1,000 gold a day." Whatever. I mean, oh, great, we'll sail you out there. There we go. She casts her spells because she's a powerful spellcaster. She gets the object, and that awakens the guardian of the object, which then starts to attack the ship. They flee. Why did they travel so fast and so far? 2 reasons. 1, A, I needed them to be able to be seen so that I could trigger the entire Kraken attack event anyway. But B, they were fleeing from the guardian of that hole, which they then were, obviously they got it caught up with them and destroyed them. And again, I wanted to show just how powerful these things are, that it didn't matter what magic was being thrown at them, they were going to get destroyed anyway. So that was all of the thinking going on in the back of my head as I was adding in the mercenaries and why they're on a mercenary ship. It has planted definitely in Brian's head the idea that the Heroes Guild exists, and that's great. We can use them as we so need. I don't know what screen I should be on, actually. So let's stay here. So let's see. Eric says, my guess would be the hole might exist to suggest breaks in reality due to the approaching of the spheres joining. Absolutely. It is now, because that's a much better idea than Wall of Force. So there we go. Brilliant. I cannot emphasize enough. There's a certain level of planning you need to do, and there's a certain level of then kind of thinking what you need to achieve and dropping that in. Now, let's see. Draco Vale says, I hope Raj does join the Heroes Guild. Absolutely. It would make my life so much easier. Can you imagine? It's like, okay, I need to get him to the testing stuff, and there is this ice elemental attack thing. Oh, the Heroes Guild post a thing that says there's a job, go do the job. And because he's part of the Heroes Guild, he'll go do the job. So it would make my life a lot easier, I will admit. If he does, that's great. That's brilliant. Let's see where that story goes. And there's a whole bunch of backstory that we can play with in the Heroes Guild. I really thought that if you bring in a phoenix, rebirth and restarts are almost required. A dead phoenix is almost an oxymoron. Correct. I like that. I really, really do like that idea, Eric. And I think you're spot on there. We could argue that the phoenix died because it is a prophecy that is a real one. It requires the energy and the magic of a phoenix in order to burn and reburn. So the bird kind of was reborn basically as a text document. I mean, that's pretty dark, but there we go. So that could be one way of looking at it. So Cobalt says, is this your own plot campaign tracker, i.e. you developed it? Yes, absolutely it is. You must have just missed the part. You can download these off of my website. They are form fillable PDFs. There are a couple options that you can grab. So for adventure, for the entire campaign, and then this plot developer, which helps you figure out your entire plot in terms of loose ends and that sort of thing. Or at least inspires a lot of it, and there's many more to it. It comes from my book, How to Create Epic Campaigns, a complete guide to creating epic campaigns, which you can also pick up from the website itself, or you can go watch the videos because it's all in the videos. Okay, so Priceless, you're talking about the captive goblin. Yeah, what's that all about? I don't know. There's a new mystery goblin. Yeah, go look for them. It will continue for a while, and if it's out of stock, that means someone has already grabbed them because there's not a lot of them around. Oh dear. So Cobalt, don't be sorry. That's brilliant. It's always nice to have people here as we talk and chat. It would be funny if the Phoenix was reborn and escaped with the prophecy written on him. Yes, catch that chicken and then shave it. I need to know what the next step of the prophecy is. That could be a lot of fun. I do admit. Eric, wow. Okay, look at you. Thank you, Eric. I really do appreciate that. So I'm going to just drop that into chat. Eric sharing that with us. Okay. Can he use prestidigitation on the prophecy? I kid you not, folks. That is how it is written. There it is there. Prestidigitation. I hate that word too. I can never pronounce it correctly. I really can't. Hello, Michael. Hello, Dead Aussie Gamer. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And yeah. Okay, so that in a nutshell is my idea. The big bad is a high priest. It's a very straightforward big bad. It's the high priest Gneos, high priest Gneos, and he has been made high priest. In other words, he is the representative to the king of all of the 8 cults. And so we think that he is the big bad, and he actually is doing all of the rituals. He has read the Utoken prophecy. He is driving it. He is trying to bring it to fruition. But what we discover is that the little old lady that we met is actually the real big bad. She is the wife of the high priest, and she is manipulating him to do all of this. When he got elevated to the position, he was done so because he was a very scholarly type, and his research she discovered in the background actually contained the secrets to controlling the universe, and so she's been manipulating him to do that. So that is our true big bad. She's a never-present big bad. We won't see her. She won't be around. He is a decoy, so that as Brian sort of pieces things together, he's going to be very suspicious of High Priest Naos anyway. High Priest Naos is going to make some appearances backwards and forwards. Let's go back here. So his entire chain is worked out. And this, for me, is the power of these templates, is that I started with who is the someone who wants something desperately? High Priest Naos. He is High Priest to the 8 spheres. Lord of the Light, Master of Darkness would be his official title. He is in the Kingdom of Etherios. He gained his seat 10 years ago after the previous High Priest died under normal circumstances. He watched his peers, his king, his elders waste their lives in pursuit of the 8 spheres, and for nothing. He will not die. He will do it better. That is a lie that his wife has been feeding into his ear over time. He is crafty but not good at hiding his disdain for others. So that disdain will come across as being, I am the evil monster and you will destroy me. He is in truth evil, but that's okay. He knows his scriptures very well and is a powerful cleric. So what do we expect of him? To be an all-powerful cleric who is evil to the core. That's what we expect of the High Priest Naos. What is established? Well, Naos is old and caring. So when we meet him the first time round, we will meet this old and caring individual who's just trying to fulfill his final thing so that he doesn't die. How do we make a difference? Well, Naos is being helped by his wife, who is using him for her own power gain. When I wrote this block, by the way, when I filled in this final sentence, I was like, that is how the plot is actually twisted. It's his wife who's driving this whole thing. A little round, cuddly, friendly old lady who will take pity on Raj if he ever presents himself to her, and will pretend to be his friend whilst her husband is busy trying to take over the universe. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun to look at that. The rest of the stuff is just figuring out how do the spheres work and where the final battle is going to be. So nothing particularly exciting, nothing particularly dramatic happening there. What I did want from you guys, and I'm going to wrap it up very, very, very shortly, is the prophecy of Utoken. I started talking about this and I drifted away. The prophecy of Utoken, I should say, the prophecy of Utoken. It's an ancient rite. It was written. Let me just make sure I've got it right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's the rites, ancient rites, written by Kova Kos the Mad. He claimed to be a god, by the way. There are no gods. He claimed to be a god. The prophecy details the rites. It's written in multiple languages. It includes Raj somehow. The prophecy was studied, and a copy exists in Definite. We know that. Oh, this is the blank spot, however, and the blank spot is under what is different about this prophecy. Now, it's written on phoenix skin, so it can only be read when it's not on fire or in ashes, which is for a very brief window every day. So we know about that. But what makes it different? How can we twist it around to make it slightly unique? And I thought, well, I was thinking about it and I kind of was drawing blanks. I'm not fazed by it. It's not a major component of the adventure or the campaign. So maybe there isn't anything unique about it, but I thought, let me throw it out to you guys and see if perhaps there's something that you could come up with. What makes this prophecy different? When we think of prophecy, we expect the prophecy to be vague. We expect the prophecy to be not the person that the prophecy speaks of. Do you think he's the one who's bringing balance to the force? No. Well, kinda in a very weird George Lucas way, but no. So we expect the prophecy to speak of someone to fit that person, but actually to also fit the person we don't expect. So that's what we expect. So how do we make this prophecy different? Because it seems as if it's geared around Raj. What do we do? What makes the prophecy different from the usual kind of prophecy? I have a thought in my head as to what could make it different, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there something that you can think of off the top of your heads that would make the prophecy different? Let's see. AK Writer says, what happens to that phoenix skin if before reading it you moisten it up with a bit of water? Water don't stop phoenix fire, which is, I believe, magical. So yeah, it's not a bad idea. I think certainly we could say that the skin you hold is in a watertight jar, so it doesn't continuously combust and reform and combust and reform. That certainly makes it visually and aesthetically more interesting. It must be read in one go, otherwise it's gibberish. Can it be a good in? Yeah, it must be read in one go. That's not terribly bad. It's not terribly rad. It's written in baby talk. Make the prophecy very specific, says Captain Priceless. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Is there a way to view the prophecy without it burning? In a mirror with a special artifact? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. What if the prophecy is revealed to have an ulterior meaning depending on how you read it? Like the text changed when reflected in the mirror. A hidden meaning or something? Yes, not a bad idea. Names are everywhere in a prophecy, but they have no meaning. Sure, it could be full of names. But the player will be clueless to him as he has no skills for working around them. Sure, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so there's a false prophecy due to an incorrect translation. The prophecy is a paradox. It was actually written by the big bad as his moment of triumph. Is actually going to be him transcribing it successfully to write it onto a phoenix. Raj had to bring the one of the other spheres, destroying him. Okay, so it's a whole you came here type of thing. There is, by the way, a time jump in the master plot because time is one of the cults, and I believe it is because Raj attacks and kills. Yes, so part of the indicator that High Priest Naos, in case he missed it, in case he misses that High Priest Naos is evil, High Priest Naos is attacked by Raj from the future because High Priest Naos was screwing around with the time sphere and he accidentally caused a rift to the future Raj, who knows that Naos is the evil character and so goes back in time to try and kill him. But unfortunately, the future Raj is killed before he can tell present Raj, hey, that's the bad guy. What it does is it sets the bad guy as being potentially not the bad guy if Raj has any suspicions that he is to begin with, but it also sets up well, time is being screwed around with, so I need to go and talk to the time priests who will then reveal that, yes, something is going very, very, very wrong. Let's go back to this. It's a recipe and seems obsolete. The prophecy has already been fulfilled. Topher the Mad. I must admit, that's not a bad one. So my entire campaign is an echo of the spheres stuck. The spheres are stuck. The prophecy is almost fulfilled, and it's going to fall apart if they don't finish the ritual. That's a lot of Star Trek right there. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. The prophecy is very specific and accurate. Well, that's what they did in Good Omens. The prophecies were to the minute accurate. The prophecy is longer. It only reveals the next part once the first one is fulfilled. Then it burns, emerges from the ashes, and there is the next part of the prophecy, says Eki Writer. That's not a bad idea. The prophecy was dictated to, what's his name, the Mad, by a future Raj. That's interesting. To make the reader to do something in opposition to the actual prophecy by telling stories can be a substitute for prophecies or a variation. What if the prophecy is encrypted in sonnets and every 4 lines of rhymes one is missing? Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Good heavens. Okay. This is what I love about being with you folks is the absolute volume of creativity. I mean, all of these are great ideas. All of them need to be worked on a little bit in terms of how to position them and make them work. One of the ones that I thought of, it is stock standard. It is a straightforward one. It's not a how is it different? Except if we make it fairly specific, the last line of the prophecy could be, and until the chosen one is sacrificed, this cycle will continue in perpetuity. So in other words, Brian will have to make the decision of sacrificing himself at the critical moment to stop this entire cycle, or to let it continue and try and find a different way of doing it. I mean, we could do that. That's again, something that we mustn't forget is that this is a solo game. So Brian really is our hero. He really is our hero. And we need to position it so that his decisions are the ones that are going to affect the entire universe. I mean, that's ultimately what the hero's job is to do. We could have the prophecy linked to the spheres. Namine91 has suggested that the prophecy will burn at a specific point, like Ascension being trying to protect the spheres. So it could be that as spheres are united, because we know that Naos does that, the prophecy changes to adjust and adapt. That's not necessarily a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. Is the prophecy adapts and changes to reveal more information. But then when I look at it, it means that it's not terrible. Time Cult abducts Raj. They believe he is fulfilling an ancient prophecy, uniting the spheres into a single whole and gaining mastery over the universe. This sentence, by the way, is quite literally because I don't think you would have got it by now, but is quite literally here, Brian, here is the gigantic plot. Would you kindly swallow this gigantic plot? There's a prophecy about the universe ending. So it's straightforward. That's all that there is. It's just straightforward. So we could have it that he gets the prophecy at this point, because this is as far as the planning has gone. So he could get you are fulfilling the prophecy. Bring the prophecy. The prophecy is being stolen, sir. What do you mean the prophecy is being stolen? It's the only... No, there's another copy in Definii. You must get there and retrieve it. We'll figure out that plot as we need to, but we certainly could do that. So maybe it changes as the spheres are doing. So there you are. Eric says that this is a very David Eddings Malorian Marin Codex feel to it. Do you know that I never read the Malorian? I read the Belgrade, which I loved, and then I started to read the Malorian, and it felt like it was just a repeat of the Belgrade. So I was like, nah, I'm over this. I didn't even finish the first book in the Malorian. So there we are. Anyway, okay. Right, I think we've got that. I'm going to drop that in. I think that works quite well. I don't have too much of a problem with it. The prophecy changes as the spheres are absorbed by Naos and reveals more information on what needs to happen next. The more I think about it, the more this idea works brilliantly for this particular campaign. Because now imagine poor old Brian at plot point number 3 has effectively been handed a gigantic countdown clock. The prophecy, he reads it, it burns. Maybe he uses ice gloves, or maybe he uses water to cool it down, or, there's a whole bunch of options that he can use, which I like, by the way. But he now has a countdown clock, as the prophecy now tells him what has now been destroyed and what now must be done. And so when he gets to the point and the prophecy says, and now the time has come to pass when the final sphere is united with its brothers, the unity will reveal the path of light, blah, 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 blah. he now knows he has to get to stopping now. So it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. So thank you, everybody, for adding and contributing to this. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So there we go. This has been a little bit longer than I thought it was, but it is introducing you to the idea. Next week, we introduce the Priests of Life, hopefully. And we'll start to do a little bit of an info dump and get his character entrenched into Utheros, and off we go. So that's it from me for this week. I will see you all again. Let's see. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. is Mercs of Mischief on the Mercs. Well, it's Into the Breach that I will be playing in with Michael as my GM. Dead Aussie Gamer will be my GM. And that's on Mercs of Mischief, the Twitch channel. Go find it. We'll post social links up. Then on Saturday, I'm actually a guest on the World Anvil live show, and I don't have my Hello World show as usual because I'm trying to take a break. And then on Sunday, we've got live sessions with the GM and so on and so on and so on. Okay, Dead Aussie Gamer sharing that Mercs of Mischief link. I will share it in the chat for everybody else. And so there we are. All right, folks, that's it from me. I do wish I could join you in the chat on the Discord channel. If you are not part of our Discord channel, go and join it. These crazies that are here are just awesome. And I'm sure they're looking to hang out with people. So there we are. Last thing, if you have a moment, sign up to circleofworldbuilders.com, circleofworldbuilders.com, because we are running a masterclass. That's at the end of the month, circleofworldbuilders.com. It's in the chat. We're running a masterclass at the end of the month. Sign up for it. It's free, but we need to know numbers. Currently, we have about 600 people signed up, which is absolutely amazing. It doesn't mean anything to you guys. The more people, the merrier. I mean, it's just going to be lots of fun and chaos and craziness. But yes, that is a masterclass in creating and designing adventures and worlds and maps and encounters, and it's going to be so much fun. And then day 2, you actually submit your stuff to us, and we critique it and talk about how to enhance it, or maybe that it's already perfect and that all we need to do is add in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I hope to see you for that, as I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, the link doesn't work. circleofworldbuilders.com. Oh, because you have to do... Okay, so you see that's what happens when I start typing. I'm actually in the wrong place. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So what was it? What was I doing? http:// circleofworldbuilders.com. There, that should work. If it doesn't work, I'm going to scream. Yes, it does work. Okay, perfect, good. Okay, you guys can go and sign up for that. If we meet 2,000 people, if 2,000 people have signed up and attend the convention, Kaora is going to dye his hair blue. Demetrius is going to shave his head. I'm not sure if Till is going to do something, and I'm still debating. Some people have said I have to shave my beard off, but that doesn't happen because then we just get Fat Harry Potter, and nobody likes Fat Harry Potter. Anyway, okay. If you can't make it, that's not a problem. It will be on the YouTube channel for all to see, for all in perpetuity, basically. So anyway, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I wish you all a fantastic Wednesday afternoon, evening, etc., etc., etc. Until next time, however, Guten Abend, good night, konbanwa, arrivederci, so long, farewell, and adieu to you all.